Hi everyone, Jason with Happy Tales here. This week we thought we would talk to you about what we do for getting ready for winter. Your furnaces, if you have a heat pump, I'll kind of go through what we do in preparation. Fall is a perfect time to do that. You still have your hot days and your cool nights, so you're going to start using your furnace more and more. And there are a couple things that you need to know about and pay attention. First off is we're going to look at all of our heat registers for our furnace. Now we have two here in the kitchen, and these guys are down here on our kick plates. So we have two here. They do adjust. Now on these two, we'll pull these off and we can vacuum off on the inside, but we'll probably just dust these out. We'll do a visual on those just to make sure that there's no dog hair or anything. With having the two big dogs, as you can imagine, we get a lot of hair. So we have those two over there, and then behind, this is where, again, dehumidifier. This is absolutely more important in the winter months than the summer because of using a furnace. You have a lot of water vapor that comes in here that a lot of people don't know about running your propane. So typically we'll find another spot for that in the winter because that's where, as you can see, we have another heat duct. Same thing, we'll clean that, we'll do a visual inspection, make sure there's no hair or anything. And then we have two more. We have another one here, which is elevated off the floor. Again, we'll do a visual inspection of that guy, make sure there's no hair. But the key, and I've already done a little bit of prep work because it was kind of a chore to get it. And it's in the floor, and that is actually our only floor register that we have. As you can see, I lifted up the two screws that mount it to the floor. And there's also screws in the side of the register that goes into the sheet metal. I pulled one of those out so that I can get a vacuum into that guy. I did vacuum across the top of it, but I want to get down into that duct and pull up any of the dog hair. Again, big German Shepherd, we have a lot of hair. So that is kind of our catch-all for all the hair, instead of turning on the furnace and having that all blow out. So I'll do that real quick, and then we'll go outside and I'll show you what to look for on the outside of your furnace. So, it's a nice thing about having a in-house vacuum. It makes it very convenient. The other thing is, like I said, as you can see, this thing dropped down. So I'm trying to save. I could pull that other one off, but I didn't want to. I don't want to crawl underneath the basement and have to hold this up while Beth screws it in. So that's just a quick thing. We did pull up a lot of junk and sand that was down inside of that ductwork. So we'll put that back together, and then we'll shoot outside and we'll show you the outside. All right, so we're on the outside, and this guy here is our furnace grate. This is our access panel to the outside of our furnace. Now, we do have a dauber screen, which I'll have Beth show you. That is to keep the mud daubers out of the exhaust ports of our furnace. Key note: dauber screens will void your warranty right off the bat. So if a manufacturer or if a tech comes out and sees dauber screens, you could void your warranty. I want that to be known. For me, I'd rather have the dauber screen on there than have mud daubers build their nests inside my tubes. So it is not that big of an issue for us. That is us. So what you're going to do is you're going to pull off your 4 screws here. They are a number 2 square head, and you can use a drill, which is probably faster. Okay, so I've pulled the 4 screws off, and we're just going to kind of work this guy back and forth. So you'll see that you have your intake, and this is your outpost. And you want to kind of just do a visual inspection. Make sure that there's no rat's nest or you don't have a bunch of built up sawdust. As you see, there is no really air return. I'll grab this. This is your air return, okay? Here and here. So it's not like your furnace at home, as to where you have like a cold air return. It's just kind of pulling the air out from around it. And as you can see, there's always a bunch of sawdust. So I'll take my shop vac and we'll come in here and we'll just vacuum this out. We'll vacuum out the tubes. We'll make sure that there's no, even though we have the screens on here, as you know from our past videos, we've only had this fifth wheel for a couple months. So who knows if they had screens on it beforehand or not. So I want to make sure that there's no daubers in there, especially since we found a bunch in the bulb seals. We found a bunch of dauber nests. So we want to make sure that there's none in there. If there is, what you can do is with your shop vac, get a long screwdriver, scrape them all out, suck them out with your shop vac before you start your furnace. So I'm going to grab my shop vac and I'm going to grab a flashlight. We're going to look in there and make sure there's nothing in there. So as we look in here, it's nice and clear. And then we look down in here inside of our burner tube and it is also nice and clear. So that's what we want to see. Now we'll take our little shop vac, we'll vacuum this all out real quick, we'll button it back up, and then we'll go back inside. So like everything else, you want to make sure that you shut off the breaker when you're trying to do any service. So we had already turned that off. I didn't show that, but there is no power to this right now. Especially if you're going to be going internally to clean things out. There is an additional switch out here, I'll have Beth show you, that also shuts that off. The big thing that tends to go out on these guys are two things. It's your thermocouple and it's what they call a sail switch. And actually the sail switch on this guy is behind here. And what the sail switch does is it monitors the blower fan. So if it doesn't feel that the blower is engaged, it will not allow your furnace to ignite. So on this one, I'm not going to be able to monitor it unless I pull the whole thing out. If that's a problem, that's what I'll do. But otherwise, we'll just button this guy back together and we'll head back inside. Now when you're putting this back in, you're going to have to do the same thing like we pulled apart. You're going to have to just kind of slowly work it in, make sure it slides in, and then it just goes across the top just like so. So we'll put our 4 screws back in and we'll head inside. Alright, so we are back inside now after putting the furnace external plate back on. The other thing we wanted to take a look at is our electric fireplace, and I'll move this because we're technically done with it. But our fireplace has just 2 settings, and that's one thing that I really miss about the Solitude is we went from like 60 up to 80 on the temperature range, so it was really nice. This just has high or low, you know, the 3 light settings and a timer. The heat comes out right here. You just want to make sure that you get this all dusted off. Again, you're going to smell burnt dust the first time or two that you use it, just because of the nature of the dust that has collected throughout the season. And then one other thing I want to talk about, general housekeeping, is, I'll show you here real quick. We'll grab a microfiber. Now again, I talked about the furnace not being like a household household furnace, to where it's not a cold air intake, but your grates here do go down into your basement, and you do collect a lot of dog hair and stuff of that nature. So eventually that will get down into your furnace, so it's a good housekeeping tip just to keep those clean as you weekly clean as well. But those grates, like I said, are not part of your cold air intake, but they do go to where it goes, so, or into the basement to where it is pulling the air, so kind of sort of it is. But for inside, that's that's basically it. Now we're going to go up on the roof, and I'm going to show you the heat pump that we have for the front air conditioner. That is also part of our winter heating. So I'll show you how we maintain that and how we keep that clean. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull off the shroud on the front, because that's where our heat pump is. We only have the one on the front. So we'll pull the 4 screws and washers off of this guy. And then we are going to pull off this shroud here, because our heat pump is underneath this guy. So what we're going to do is I'll get my socket set, and we'll pull, there's 4 screws that encase this plastic housing, and we'll pull it off. So be right back. So I took off, there's 4 posts here, but both this and my rear unit only have 3 nuts out of the 4. It is a 10mm nut, lock nut. So we've got those all off. We're going to pull up the tape that's holding our capacitors. We're just going to set those to the side. Be careful with those guys. And again, just like the furnace, I've shut the breaker off. There's no power to this whatsoever. So we're going to work this guy up and off, and we are going to set him up on top of here. Now, we're going to inspect all of our coils, make sure that everything is looking primo and everything looks good. I will grab what I use to clean these guys off real quick. I did this, oh Beth, when did we do this? Probably about 2 months ago.
Probably, yes.
We've already kind of gone through this whole step and cleaned these condenser coils. As you can see, they're really clean. I use 2 different products. I use this guy here, and we'll throw a link down in our description, as well as this guy here. This guy I kind of use on the external ones, and the reason I really like this Frost King is because it has this cap, and the cap will come up, and not only does it help clean these out, like if you had a little indent to where those are bent, now you can see they're bent, you can bring that cap up. It's not going to get it perfect, but it sure will get a lot of them out, and you can see that it pulls all of that stuff right on out. I'm not going to worry about spraying these, because again, I just cleaned them. What I am going to do is I'm just making sure that, grab that from Beth. I want to make sure that, which I had done prior, is the foil tape to make it more airflow dynamic, and make sure my freeze plug here is in, and again, that there's nothing impacting those coils whatsoever. I will try and clean this little goober up here, and maybe this guy down there, and that is it. So the heat pump, which underneath here, is looking good, and our coil packs are good, so we're going to button it back up and call it good. And as you can see, it's hard to get into the corner, but it does straighten those guys out. I've got a little bit up front here as well. And we're going to straighten these fins right on out. Be careful of your freeze plug. And we are golden.
We got one over here too, honey. We got one over here too.
Well, yeah, I'm
oh, okay.
Before I put this back together. So Beth was showing you that I have a couple dents on the back. We'll get that as soon as we put this back together. So just make sure that, and I put some of this tape on here, the foil tape, because this was hanging down last time I was in here. So it's going to slide back down over your 4 posts. Make sure that this guy is seated back where they have that just to keep it. And again, the capacitors are gonna, they just kind of hang over the mounting shroud plate, and they have a piece of tape holding it in place until you get your nuts back on. So we'll put these guys back on, and I'll check out that back side that Beth was pointing out. All right. Where was the thing? We'll try and pull that up. Like I said, some of this it's not going to get. You can spend some time. You can get some. They call them combs. They call it condenser combs. If you want to be that particular about it, basically you just don't want a flat surface here to where it's all indented in. What we see back here is perfectly fine, and we will carefully pick up our shroud, set it back in place. Making sure that there's a little lip in the front, that we're on the right side of that lip, and on this back side. And we put our shroud back together, and we're good to go. So that is all we need to do on the roof as for part of our fall maintenance. So, all right, so we talked about our furnace and, you know, the importance of having that all ready to go. This is our next thing. So this guy here is our heated hose. Basically, it's our heated water hose, and it comes in a 25 foot or a 50 foot, and basically 110 plug into your pedestal, and then you run it back through, and it takes place of this guy here. We will link that guy down in our description. But one thing to keep in mind with this guy is it also comes with insulated hose covers, and those you would put over your fittings. So you put it over the fittings of your tap. Sorry, we had a passing car. So you would put that insulated hose cover over your tap to your faucet, and then to your hose, as well as if this wasn't heated. Now, most of these guys are heated in these wet bays. Ours is, we have heat that's dedicated to this, and so we would just run this guy up. Now, another thing to note is, and I'll have Beth show you, we have a pretty big gaping hole there. And what we do is we just take a pool noodle and we wrap it around the end of our hose and then put it in that hole, and that keeps it, you know, not 100% insulated, but it sure helps a lot, and that helps keep that heat in there. And so that's what we do in the winter for our plumbing intake. And now we'll go inside and I'll show you what we do on the inside. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, well, we just showed you our heated hose that we use for our water intake. And for our water outtake, what we do, and most RVs, especially four-season RVs, have what they call tank heaters, and ours is actually pretty simple. Ours is just a button. We turn it on, it comes on. Oh, and we turn it off. Now, along with that tank heater comes a little bit of responsibility, and what that partakes is you need to have liquid in your tanks. And while we're on the subject, please, 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 leave your black tank closed unless you're draining the whole tank. It's going to do you a lot of favors by letting that tank work. It needs that, and it needs that fluid in there to break down stuff. Enough of the black tank lecture. Gray tank, for us, is the same thing. We don't leave our gray tank open. We wait till our gray tank is full before we drain it. Now, in the winter, we actually fill our water tank, our fresh tank, and we do that for a couple reasons. Mostly because you never know when that tap is going to freeze. And, you know, it's one of those tricky things, because most campgrounds in the freeze belt, we'll call it, they do a really good job of trying to protect the taps and keep them from freezing. But it does happen, and even some places will tell you if it gets below 30 degrees, you need to unhook your water hose. So if you get up in the middle of the night and you need to use your facilities, you want to have running water. If you're unhooked from the tap, you got to have water. So that's why we always fill our tank in the winter and we run off of that. Now in the summer, we just run straight off of the city water. We don't typically fill our pump or our tank. And you have a much better chance of having your tanks run out without freezing if they're warm, if the water is warm, as you can understand. Now, don't freak out. If you don't have tank heaters on your RV, it's okay. It really is, because you can buy them. They're aftermarket. They are a little bit of a pain to put on, but they literally just mount to the bottom of your tank. They're a 12-volt system. You can put switches in, and you can have it. The other thing to note is we talked a little bit earlier about our electric fireplace, and we like to use electric space heaters. I want to note that we actually do that, but we do it in conjunction with our furnace. And the reason I say we do it with our furnace is because the furnace is designed to heat your plumbing down in your basement, which you don't see. So that means it's heating your valves, for your pole valves for draining your tanks. It's doing all of your check valves that are behind your water heater, by your water pump. So it's very important that you still use your furnace in conjunction with space heaters if that's the route you go, or if you have a heat bump up in your AC. You want to still use your furnace when you can, at least to maintain that basement and keep that all nice and warm and keep from having frozen pipes. So enough of my spiel. I'll jump off of that soapbox, but that's what we do. I hope it helps. If you guys have any questions, by all means, throw them down in the description down, or the comments rather, not the description, and we'll get back to you. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great week. Bye-bye.